It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I'll do better tomorrow. That's what we're doing today on the Happy Families podcast. Hello, I'm Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm here with my wife, mum to our 6 kids, Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie. Kylie, we've got heaps to talk about today. It's just, school holidays in Queensland finished 2 weeks ago, ahead of the pack. Queensland is very rarely ahead of the pack. I don't know if I should say that out loud or not, but Queensland usually lags a little bit when it comes to most things in Australia. Although with an upcoming election in Queensland and house prices surging to the second most expensive in the country, I think Queensland is becoming the new second best state in the nation, right behind New South Wales. Maybe just the second most expensive. I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, I don't either.
Anyway, how did I get there? Let's go back to the topic. I'll do better tomorrow. This is where we look at the week or weeks in our case just now that have been and talk about what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how we can be better parents. Kylie, do you want to go first or me?
Look, over the last term or so, we've talked a lot on the podcast about family meetings and getting things right.
Yes.
And we've also shared alongside that the importance of checking in with each of your children individually and as a husband and wife team. And I had an experience just recently which really highlighted just how important it is to tap in with your kids.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
With you traveling as much as you have over the last handful of months, I feel like I have been treading water at best and not doing a great job at it. I feel more exhausted and more stretched than I have in a very, very long time. And as a result, I've missed a lot of cues when it comes to the kids. And I've actually been really grateful that for the most part, they've kind of been parenting themselves.
I don't like where this is going. Carry on.
But I decided to check in with one of our kids because she just didn't have a skip and a step the way she usually does. And as we got talking, same 3 questions that we go through with our family meetings. What's going well in your life right now? What's not? And how can you do better? Or how can we better what's going on? And she talked about the things that were going well, and there wasn't a huge list. But once we got to the things that weren't going well, the thing that she said to me was she just felt like she kind of got missed a little bit because she's not a demanding child. She just kind of got left to her own devices. And it really felt like a little bit of an uppercut for me as a mum who is trying really, really hard to be available to her kids, but recognising with my own limitations that I have actually been grateful that she's just been getting on with life and doing her own thing. And at that point, she didn't actually have anything that she really needed to chat to me about, but I was so grateful for the reminder that I just need to check in. So fast forward a couple of weeks. Last week, I found her just really snappy. And I thought I need to check in. So I tapped in with her and I asked her what was going on. And she didn't want to say anything. She didn't want to talk to me. And maybe about 15, 20 minutes later, you tapped in, tried to see if you could make some progress there. And she still didn't want to say anything. And then I sat down for dinner. Everybody else had kind of gone to their corners of the house and things had quietened down. And she just sat there. And I looked at her and I said, I feel like you want to talk to me. And it all just came out. Weeks and weeks and weeks of angst, things that she's just been holding on to, just hasn't been able to kind of find the right words or find the right time to be able to have a chat with me about. And I just, of all the things that I could have been doing at that time, that was probably not the thing that I wanted to be doing. It was nearly 9 o'clock at night. I was exhausted.
I'm pretty sure the only thing you wanted to be doing was sleeping right then. Yeah.
But I was so grateful that I had tapped in with her a few weeks ago and she had just reminded me of just how important it is as a parent to be available.
So this reminds me of 2 or 3 quick stories. And I know that I'll Do Better Tomorrow is about our parenting, but it just strikes me so profoundly as you talk about this. Number one, friend, mentor, wonderful man, Professor H. Wallace Goddard, who is a family life specialist in the United States. He talks regularly about how sometimes we ask the kids how they're doing and we don't need to ask at all. All you have to do is look at them and they're telling you already. Look at their face, look at their shoulders, look at the way they're moving their bodies or the energy that they're exuding or not putting out at all. There's a pretty good signal right there as to how they're doing. Second thing, just the power of emotional availability. Recognizing what you recognize, pausing and saying, is now a good time to chat? Is there anything you want to let me know about? That simple act and being willing to sit there and go through it is so profoundly important. And the third thing that jumped in my mind was a story from somebody that attended one of my very first ever workshops. I'm talking 20 years ago when I very first began. I didn't have any qualifications, but I knew that I was heading in this direction. And so I started running this series of workshops about parenting. And there was a mum who showed up on the second week. The previous week's assignment had been to be emotionally available to your kids. So she's out mowing the lawn the next day, hot Queensland day, dust everywhere, and her 7-year-old daughter wants to talk to her. And she doesn't want to stop the lawnmower because, well, she's mowing and it's hot and it's dusty and the 7-year-old can wait. But she remembers the promise that she made in the workshop the night before to be emotionally available to the kids. And so she turns off the mower and says to her daughter, "What do you want?" And her daughter hears in the tone this frustration and says, "Doesn't matter." And Mum says, No, it does matter. It does matter. I want to be available. So they go and sit on a rock. And she says, "Tell me, what is it that you wanted to ask?" And this little 7-year-old looks at her mum and says, "Mummy, I just feel like I don't fit in our family." And I love this story because it highlights again the willingness that it's so inconvenient. There's no other way to say it. Parenting is inconvenient. It's annoying. As parents, we sacrifice so much. And yet you have that moment where you sit down with your little one and they do open up and they do share because they're ready and because you were available. And I mean, I haven't asked for the end yet, but hopefully you get a good outcome, right? There's that closeness, there's that connection, there's progress as a result.
It would be very easy for me to sit there and actually kind of berate myself for having missed so many signals from the last couple of months while you've been gone.
Yeah.
But I also recognize the immense pressure that I was under, and I'm going to be kind to myself and just acknowledge that I can't be everywhere and be everything to everyone in every moment. But I'm really, really grateful for the constant reminders that we have as we check in with each other of the importance of being able to spend that one-on-one time. This particular child, she actually will not come out and say she needs to talk to you, but she'll hover. And I'm seeing that more and more as she gets older, that she's there. And if you are not attentive, it's just like an annoying fly on the wall kind of feeling. Do you know what I mean? They're there. They're not doing anything. They're not requesting anything of you, but they're just there. They're in your space. But as I have been able to spend that time with her, check in with her, ask her what's going well, what's not going well, she's really been able to just articulate for me that what she needs is to feel seen. And that means that when she's in my space, she actually wants me. Our kids want us in their space. It doesn't matter how old they are. They want us in their space.
This is why we as adults still call our parents. It's like,
yeah, and sometimes they don't know how to ask for it because what they see is we're too busy. So they don't want to be a burden. They don't want to get in our space, and yet they're in our space. Mm-hmm. So I was really grateful for it, and I'm going to take it as a win because in spite of my lack of availability for her in the past few months, we've been able to tap in and really connect on such a beautiful note and being able to kind of help her work through some challenges.
So many great take-home messages there. My favourite one, being kind to yourself and not getting it right all the time. I just think that's so important.
What's your story today?
You know me. I don't have one. I have several. First off,
you know that you added a few stories to my story.
I know. But I just love what I do. I love to get to talk about this stuff. There's so much that we need to highlight. 3 things. First of all, the Americanization of our children is complete. Just wanted to highlight that. Thanks to Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and everything else that the world now has. The other day, we were goofing off in the living room and Lily, our 14-year-old, said, "Oh no, call 911." It wasn't called 000, it was called 911. Now, it wasn't a real emergency. We didn't need to call anyone, but that was the joke. But she meant it seriously. And when I looked at her and said, 911? And she said, "Yeah, we need the ambulance." And I said, "That's not who we call." And she looked at me strangely for 3 or 4 seconds. And then there's that, the literal light bulb goes on in the eyes, and they're like, oh, 000, I forgot. So that was just, it's not really an I'll do better tomorrow, more of just what in the world is going on with our kids when they really, I wonder how many Australians really do call 911. It got me thinking, I might Google that later and find out what I can. I had a conversation with our daughter who's in Canada at the moment, 21 years old. 21? Yeah, she's 21 or about to be 21. And we were talking about the loss of my grandpa. He passed away, as we mentioned on the podcast, a couple of months ago. And she was really teary about it and just said, Daddy, I don't ever want you to die. And it was really heartfelt. And then she said this, and I wrote it down because it touched me so profoundly. I almost burst into tears talking to her. She said, when you die, Daddy, I'm getting in the grave and holding your hand forever. How do you respond to that? Well, I get weepy just thinking about it. So that was, again, probably not so much an I'll do better tomorrow, but I guess when we build that relationship over the years, that's what we're aiming for, right? I was like, please don't get into the grave. You need to let go of my hand. It's going to be kind of gross after a couple of days of being dead. Anyway, the I'll do better tomorrow that I wanted to share was a really simple one, and that is that during the holidays, we've had a recurring theme on this podcast. And that is that we don't do holidays particularly well. We have had some really good family getaways, but quite often you leave the comfort of your home and the space of your home and go somewhere else, and you go into a tent or a cabin or a hotel room. So you've got about 1/10 of the space you normally have. You don't have any of the usual things that make life comfortable that you have accumulated at home. And then you try to live and have an awesome time. We had a Coffs Harbour family holiday, and we gave up halfway through.
Well, not only that, when the kids started kind of saying, why did we come to Coffs Harbour?
What are we
The
even doing
last
here?
3 holidays in Coffs have been terrible. The first time we got absolutely rained out. The second one, you broke your back, and we got rained out again this time.
Got rained out. So we wrapped up the holiday 2 days early, and you had planned to head down south to Wollongong to a place that we loved. We lived there for a decade. I came home with Annie. So you had 5 days, I think, down south with the other kids while I was at home with Annie, our 17-year-old. And on the way home, we were talking about stuff. And for some reason, The Hunchback of Notre Dame came up, the Disney movie. And she said, can we watch it? So we watched it. And then the next night, we watched The Emperor's New Groove. And then the next night, we watched Wreck-It Ralph. I just had a ball.
What is going on? You won't watch movies with us when we have family night.
I hate watching movies, but for whatever reason, do you know what it was? I had nothing else to do. Like, there was just me and Annie. Life was so quiet. It was so quiet.
Living your best life.
It was amazing. Anyway, I just loved hanging out with our 17-year-old daughter and watching some fun movies and cooking meals together and cleaning the kitchen together and having really quiet, easy time. That one-on-one time is just precious. Didn't do anything hardcore. Didn't have any profound conversations or anything like that. It was just time together watching some of my favorite Disney cartoons.
And I think that is the big lesson here. We think that what our kids need are big flashy holidays and, kind of adventure-seeking activities.
Take them nowhere, just watch some Disney and you'll be right. Is that what you're saying?
No, they just want us.
Yeah, they do.
They actually just want us.
I've done this too many times, but I'm going to do it one more time. We had some friends many years ago who took their kids on a big trip to the United States. They were gone for 5 or 6 weeks, came home, and the city in which they lived, there was one of those free buses where you jump on the bus and go around the city. And there was a day before school. And so the dad decided to take the kids on the bus so mum could unpack, get the house in order, and just have the kids out from under her feet and have some breathing room. She was happy to do it. They were happy with that division of labour. Next day, they're heading into the schoolyard. The teacher says, how's your big trip? Because the teacher knew that they'd gone away for that long because they'd missed extra school. And the kids said, oh, it was amazing. And the teacher said, what was the favourite part of the holidays? And the kids said, yesterday on the free bus with Dad. He's like, what did I spend the 40 grand for? 50 grand, whatever it was. Anyway, we really hope that you've gotten some good value out of these ideas, these stories, and these take-home messages. The Happy Families podcast returns on Monday. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We appreciate Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. He produces the podcast, and if you'd like more information about making your family happier, you'll find it all at happyfamilies.com.au.